strategic priorities. And when we, if you're looking in your budget book at page 277 and more specifically page 283, you won't see these numbers that we're seeing on this particular sheet here. This is the holistic view of the entire airport. So when we go talk to the capital markets, when we talk to investors, when we talk to our aviation partners, they want to look at us holistically. So we're showing the entire picture here. As a reference for those that have been here, we have a bridge document on page 11 that we'll look at a little bit more closely, but it shows you the specifics of what we fund for the executive offices, law, procurement, IT, finance, human resources, fire and police, and also some non-departmental charges that are the indirect charges. So the big picture-wise, revenue, we'll start talking about that. We break this down into really two kind of primary categories. Aeronautical revenue, which is revenue that's earned from activity from the airlines primarily. So terminal rents, landing fees, where they rent cargo facilities, the other type things. And then we have kind of the other component, which is our non-aeronautical revenue, which is driven primarily by your parking concessions and rental car, but there's other components in here as well. So we're going to get into a little bit of that, and then we'll talk about the expenses as well. So, you know, one of the things from a big picture standpoint that I wanted to point out is, you know, we've been with COVID for 2.5 going on 3 years. Forecasting in an enterprise that's $1 billion in normal times can be challenging. Through COVID, that process is even more challenging. And you can see as we look at, you know, the activity from fiscal year 21 to 22 to 23, COVID has certainly had some impact, and I'll talk about some of the bigger ones as we go through there. However, we do monitor our budget on a monthly basis. We do sit down with every one of our divisions on a quarterly basis and make sure we're in line with our budget as we progress throughout the fiscal year. So landing fees and terminal rents, these are the two primary charges that we charge to the airlines for renting the facilities and using the airfield. On landing fees, one of the major things that I'll point out here, you'll notice that in fiscal year 22, we budgeted $0. We've used some of our what we call COVID relief grants, which is our CARES, Chris, and ARP, to reduce those. Terminal rents is, you know, up and down as well. We've had impacts of using COVID relief grants for there as well. Airline passenger credits, those are increasing for fiscal year 23, both on the passenger credit and the concession credit. The passenger credit, we give the 60 cent per in-plane passenger credit to the airlines. Through fiscal year 22, that reduces to 40 cents in fiscal year 23. Also, concession credit, we give them a credit of 70% of concessions leading up to fiscal year 22, and that reduces to 50% in fiscal year 23. So you'll see a decline there. The last thing that I'll point out on airside rentals, you'll notice that, you know, compared to projection, that number's growing by 18 million and 28 million budget over budget. We have some increases there in revenue related specifically to our Delta Technical Operations Center, fuel farm recovery charges, and those type things. From a non-aeronautical revenue perspective, I'll point out kind of the big things and the trends that we saw in the metrics. Parking is really starting to get back to the pre-COVID levels. During fiscal year 22, we raised the rates back to their you know, pre-COVID rates, so we're just on target for that. You would notice when you looked at the metrics, we are actually budgeting slightly less in fiscal year 23 than we were targeting in 22, and part of that is for some of the construction that we're doing on the north and south to stabilize those decks, but we still anticipate strong revenue on that side. Concessions, that number is $50 million. This is reflective of COVID relief credits, specifically the American Rescue Plan dollars, that will reduce that number down to roughly $50 million. And then on car rental has been strong. If you've tried to rent a car recently, you'll know that it's expensive to rent a car. We recoup 10% on that. So we're looking good there. I'm going to move to the expense side. Just flip my notes here. So from a macro perspective on the expense side, there's a number of things that are kind of driving our overall increase. So you'll notice that we have a $67 million increase to the projected fiscal year 22 number, $30 million budget over budget. So the first thing is really policy changes to enhance pay equity opportunities both within the Department of Aviation employees and within our contract employees. Department of Aviation employees, we've worked to make a minimum of $20 per hour for each individual employee that works for the Department of Aviation, and in our contracts, $15 per hour. So those are impacting increases. Personnel and contract services line is also impacted because a lot of the personnel supporting operations, supporting the parking facility, supporting all we do here are flowing through contract services. So that's a major increase. Certainly, if you read the paper on a daily basis, inflation is out there. It's real. We see it every single day. So that's having a big impact on costs. And then as part of inflation, salary pressures, both when we're hiring new employees and from a retention standpoint, we're seeing some increases there. So I'm going to probably stop there on personnel and move on to contract services. Beyond kind of the impacts from the personnel increase, we have some increase in operations as well. So we're adding, well, first of all, during the pandemic in 21 and 22, we reduced several of our contracts in response to the pandemic. The parking contract, the security contract, the customer service contract. These are very large contracts that help us operate the airport. So we're starting to see as we move back into fiscal year 23, passenger traffic's going to be right about the pre-COVID level in fiscal year 19. So all of these operations we're bringing back online. So we're seeing an increase on those, including our new products, the ATL West Deck, the ATL Select Lot from a parking perspective, certainly continuing to enhance the operational and security posture of the airport. So we're seeing increases there as well. So those are the major items that I'm going to touch on the operating plan. We'll move to the next slide. So debt service coverage is one of the three major metrics that we talk about and when we manage the health of the airport. Cost per unplanned passenger and our renewal and extension rollover are the other two. So we do have a slide in here for debt service coverage, and this really reflects our ability to pay the debt service that we have. So we have about $2.7 billion of outstanding debt between our general airport revenue bonds, our passenger facility bonds, and our customer facility bonds. This is focused more on our general airport revenue bonds because operating revenue is what pays that debt service. As we noticed on the metric sheet, 1.5 is our internal target for debt service coverage. You'll see the bottom line numbers are very skewed because of COVID. For fiscal year 21, we were actually at 3.7. That is really just a result of how we applied the CARES dollars for use against debt service. And then for fiscal year 22 projected and for fiscal year 23, we're showing NA for debt service primarily because we're using CARES, CRISA, and ARP dollars to reduce debt service to zero for the general airport revenue bonds. Move on. The next slide is just an update for this body on COVID relief grants. As we've stated in the past, we have, between the CARES grant, the CRISA grant, and the ARP grant, airport dollars of $738 million have been awarded to us. There are also $11 million and $45 million for CRISA and ARP related specifically to concessions. Also have been awarded to us for a total of $795 million worth of grants. The section down below shows you what we have done to date as far as utilization and what we intend to do. For fiscal year 23, which is what we're talking about today, we will be drawing down $196 million to help support the operations of the airport, and then we'll draw down the remainder portion in fiscal year 24. I mentioned this slide a little bit earlier, so if you were following along on page 283, this is really just for your reference as you're going back looking at the budget book. The left-hand column at the top should tie back directly to page 283. The other city departments, we always show the breakout of those as the city departments that I mentioned earlier, page references to the left. And then the two big departments that support us significantly are our public safety departments, fire and police. We combine them in one column here, but you can see the reference pages for looking at those as well. And then lastly, I will move us to the enplaned passenger projection numbers. So these are the enplaned passenger numbers that we've built our operating budget on. You'll notice the red line is our fiscal year 19. This is the year that we call our pre-COVID baseline number, the last time we had no impact. As you see the blue lines, they're essentially touching the red line. So in the early part of the fiscal year, a little bit below, but as we move towards the end of the fiscal year, they're starting to move above. Again, this is a forecast, but we're generally pretty conservative in our forecasts and our revenue projections, so we'll see how that shakes out. It is right at fiscal year 19 numbers, a little bit higher on domestic and a little bit lower on international and plane numbers. And
so that concludes the budget presentation. What we are forecasting this year in terms of passenger. Last year we finished the calendar year 2021, 75.7 million passengers. We're expecting that we will see somewhere around 98 million passengers this year. Significant increase in number, and it's also reflective in our revenue, parking revenue, concession revenue, and other areas. Councilmember, that concludes our briefing subject to your questions.
Extraordinarily efficient. Questions? Ms. Lewis.
Thank you for coming today, and I'll start off by saying visionary, efficiency, and success. Just like you started off with that photo. You said we would start with a smile and end with a smile. I'm looking up. I just seen Councilmember Marino Wood smile. So you were right when it comes through with all that parts. I like the airport and a couple of more departments since I've been here, because you take the focus of the city council and you include our goals and your goals. And the one program you didn't talk about today was a program I know since I've met you, we've been talking about, that youth job program. And I know this is the first of its kind at the airport.
We have always have an internship program for high school kid and college kid, but it's normally around 20. This year, I have mandated to the team that we're going to hire 100 local area affiliated with the airport, high school children, 100, and 45 college students for internship starting January 6th. This morning, during my speech to the Metro Atlanta Chamber, I said our mayor vision is 3,000, and I asked those 40 or so CEOs sitting in there, when I mentioned what we're doing, it was a resounding round of applause, and I asked them, it's now you all need to help us meet the mayor's mandate or goal of 3,000 kids, taking them off the street and make them productive citizens.
And the job at the airport is totally different. The reason why I say it's a one of a kind, because you told me so much about some of the things you'll be doing. It's more than just a job, right?
It's more than a job. So what we want to do is we want to also teach them skill sets so that when they're mature and they go out into the world, they're equipped. You know, we want to, one of the things is, today, digital transformation is so important to what we do. When you post on Facebook and LinkedIn and you put your profile on LinkedIn, we wanted to send a message to the world that this is who I am. Look at me. You know, let it be a standout in the clutter of LinkedIn. Jai and our AVS team and a number of the folks at the airport are looking at that. They're young, they're millennials, right? Old people like me that are still, stable. But teach them etiquette, teach them other skill set, financing and stuff. And we have days set aside for that. Not only are they going to come and work, but we're going to teach them and equip them with the necessary skill set to be successful in life.
I like to highlight these programs. So that's $15 an hour. You're going to give them their uniform for free, and you're going to feed them every day. Lunch is good every day.
We'll provide lunch for them.
And that's something you've been doing?
No.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure because
We have provided a uniform in the past, and we provide a meal voucher or lunch until you receive that first paycheck, and then you're on your own. This year, you made a conscious decision because of the cost of, a meal and so on and so forth. We decided that we're going to go a little bit above and beyond, and we will provide lunch to these kids.
okay, and also the kicker is the MARTA card. You're also giving them MARTA cards throughout the entire summer.
Yeah, we'll augment their transportation expense and so on and so forth.
I know we're having a job fair tonight, and my goal is to give you as many students. I just hope other council members know about this program because we got youth this summer that need to take advantage of this, 145 potential opportunities. And I'll get into my questions after that. I wanted to first highlight some because we made a connection on the first day. I said you need to hire folks, high school students and college students like we used to. And I appreciate and I want to applaud you for from growing from 20 to 100. You just grew by 120%. I mean, more than 100%. So I appreciate you for doing that.
So, Councilmember, I want to mention something. Is the team jumped right into it without batting an eye and says, boss, this is great. We love it. And they took it and they developed a plan, and they briefed me a couple of weeks ago, so they're doing phenomenal. They bought into this vision. Remember, when I talk about our purpose, I said we have a social responsibility. We have a social responsibility to the environment and to our community. This is part of our social responsibility.
Yeah, this is social mobility in action. I ran on social mobility, so this is me keeping a campaign promise to my constituents. My next question to you, I know an airport without cranes is a dying airport. And so as long as we got cranes, we're growing.
I wonder who told you that.
A very wise man told me our airport is growing as long as it has cranes in it. My question to you is, with the procurement process and with bidding, I know that last week Josh Rowan, Commissioner of Transportation, talked about how when contracts came in, when bids would come in, when people came in as non-responsive, he would send them back. You've actually worked on a different thing in the airport to stop people from being non-responsive, and you're also looking forward, innovation. What gives you this confidence to be able to do these type of things is what I'm asking. And is there potential for growth? Because I can tell being innovative, that's something y'all have already started doing.
So there's a couple of things with that, right? So last week we heard City Council member loud and clear. City Council member voiced some concern about the procurement process. As I'm sitting here, I'll tell you our procurement process is not broken, but is there opportunity to strengthen the process? And I will submit to you that the answer is yes. We have had the CPO, myself, and member of my team and the CPO team, and the Director of Office of Contract Compliance have met last week, and the CPO is leading an effort to do a forensic analysis with both consultant help, end user help, and his office help to look and explore every element of our procurement process today, and where there are opportunities to strengthen that system, he will put it all together and make that recommendation to the administration in a very short period of time. We have not established a timeline, but myself and my team have volunteered to work with the CPO and his team and others to start this forensic analysis starting this week.
I appreciate you. I want to say I thank you. I want to go through. Thank you, Brother Michael Smith, for everything you've been doing. Thank you, Ms. J. Farrell, for everything you've been doing. Thank you, Mr. Bryan, for everything you've been doing. Thank you, Ms. Jen, for everything you've been doing. And Brother Frank, you're the most important person up here because the cranes are there because of you. So I want to say thank you for everything you've been doing. Thank you for keeping us growing. And thank you for being innovative and attacking this, grabbing the bull by its horn. You heard the concerns. You coming in with suggestions, which means we can work together. I appreciate you. And Miss Anita, sitting in the back, who don't like to hear her name, I appreciate you for being involved and making sure that we are growing together. Thank you again.
Well, I want to piggyback on that. That's the one bone I've got to pick with your otherwise sterling presentation. Your most valuable asset isn't up here with y'all.
And I have to remind her 5 times a day, Councilmember, that she's my most valuable asset.
The service street.
I'll just keep the praise-a-thon going. I just wanted to make sure that you all knew how invaluable your expertise has been and how proud we are as a city because of your transparency and accountability at all times. And I do know that as you report to us on a regular basis that we may not always, look like we're all on the same team, but we absolutely are. And so that's where communication comes in, and I appreciate your communication in this two-way at all times until we all get on the same page. And I love the work that you do. I love how innovative we've been. I love the fact that no matter what, I can hold my head up high at all times, and you're one of the things that I constantly brag about. And no matter who is talking to me from any city, they always know that Atlanta runs an airport, and we don't just run a airport. We run the best airport, and goodness, who can say that? So I appreciate that. The only thing I'd like to talk about is I want to help you all fill these 150 vacancies, because I know we have 150 people in our region that needs to be on your team. So we've got to figure that out, and I'm willing to help you do that. So you all just, brainstorm, figure out how I can help, and I'm happy to do that. And that's just about it. I really want to thank you. And I love that when you all step on stage, I actually know faces and names. And that doesn't always happen because there's always this change with the different departments and everything. But, and you don't always talk to every department, especially if they change often. But again, that communication is always here, the accountability, you show up, and you almost make it so that we don't have a choice but to learn this. So thank you for all of that.
Thank you, Councilmember. Jeffrey Norman, our HR Commissioner, and I'll be remiss if, April, could you please raise your hand back here, please? Miss April Brothers. If they can't see you, stand, please.
April, I can't see you.
April Brothers, who is our HR director, I have her working 27 hours a day, 8 days a week.
Oh, my.
In pay equity, in recruitment, in salary adjustment, in grade and classification. She and her team is doing a phenomenal job, and I'll leave it at that, April.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Amos, and then Mr. Winston.
Yes. First and foremost, thank everybody up there. I mean, it's no secret. I'm a former member of the outstanding, world-renowned security team at the airport. So my questions are a little different, but I'm glad my colleague did bring up the 150 vacancies, because if you think about the previous departments that came before us, all of them spoke about not being able to get people through HR, and not through the department HR, but downtown HR. And I can give you a personal story about that if I need to, but I want. So we do need to look at that. I will be interested in to know how many of these 150 vacancies are actually in operations.
You got a vacancy. It's just a handful of vacancies. So what the 150 vacancies scattered through also in operations. We're just talking about that coming over here. Operations and Security Division, maybe one or two. For the very first time, our AOC, Airport Operations Center, 911 Dispatch Center, we're down to 4 vacancies. Phenomenal. Okay, and that's thanks to April and the work. I don't know what process, whether there's a breakdown in the recruitment process, but Councilmember Amos, I will tell you that all our positions are funded 100%, and the HR commissioners fully support as they go to the VRB, the Vacancy Review Board. We are moving forward with the recruitment of our vacant position as candidates are applying. And what we are seeing now, in the last 2 or 3 months, we have seen a shift where before people will debate whether to accept an offer. Now we're getting the majority of those that we interview and we're making an offer are starting to accept those offers.
Wonderful, wonderful. I noticed you, just like everyone talked about the 2% living COLA, that's across the board for all employees or just certain levels, or where would that 2% fall?
You want
I can answer that, Council Member. The 2% COLA is across the board for all city employees, including aviation as well as watershed employees. So it's across the board. It's 2%, and right now it's we have it loaded and anticipated to start as of January 1st of 2023.
Okay, thank you. I noticed several board members came out to tour the airport. It was wonderful. Learned a lot. But even then, I asked. But while I'm bringing it back up, the Dean Department talked about revamp of access control as far as the rest of the city buildings. And at that particular meeting, I asked about the airport, and he did put it back out, or you guys. But the update of access control, I noticed some airports have moved to biometrics, and we still, and I think that was actually answered at the meeting that it may come up. So I just want to put that back out there to my colleagues to know that that will be coming up and that will be a hefty price tag.
Yeah, not only access control, but our CCTV system. We're modernizing it to digital and modern system. And so you will see more of it. And that's why I want to talk about the dynamic technology and innovation system. Those are the things I'm talking about. We have our building system, then we have customer-facing product, such as what we're talking about here.
And then last but not least, our security team out there, our security reps, I know we always receive the best training, but as the threats ramp up, just want to ensure that this budget will cover whatever is needed to ensure that we ramp up our skills. And also, I know there are certifications and things of that nature. Just want to make sure the budget covers that so we can keep.
Absolutely, we do have additional stuff for more modernized equipment, especially for our law enforcement agency out there.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Thank you all for the presentation and all you do for the City of Atlanta. The state of Georgia has the 12th highest GDP, but we have the #1 airport in the world, and that's a testament to all of your hard work and dedication to keeping the legacy of the late Maynard Jackson. So thank you all for that hard work and your dedication. Do have a few questions about some of your key metrics. You see projections going up in your cargo volume in terms of metric tons. Just wanted to get an idea, from a percentage breakdown, are we looking at that being a majority of imports or exports when we start looking at the cargo?
And so whether it's import and export is hard for us to tell, but most of our freight, because we handle mostly freight cargo, right? So most of those, then except, I don't know if Amazon have some local and regional that they're bringing to the airport, but most of our freight carriers are foreign flag carriers coming from overseas. So that's a lot of import. And then we do, because this is a manufacturing area, a lot of the freight going outbound are manufacturing, car parts and or cars and timber and other stuff, perishable item that is leaving Atlanta. And I will tell you, in 2021, for the first time in the history of this airport, we have handled more freight tonnage than in the history of this airport, 731,000 metric tons. We are out of cargo capacity, and so right now, Frank is overseeing the expansion of our cargo, and we will expand our cargo facility by another 50% in the next 2 or 3 years. We're building a modern facility. It will be a P3 private-public partnership, and that's already underway.
Thank you. And are there any concerns? We're dealing with, a conflict in Ukraine. The global market seems to be having some instability around those efforts. So do we think there's any concern about, relying so much on imports coming into our cargo area?
We don't have any concerns. As a matter of fact, as we were pulling into the parking deck, our assistant port director for Customs and Border Protection called to talk a little bit about cargo, and so we have a very robust inspection program, a very tight program of cargo leaving and coming into the country.
And then you all are experiencing a lot of growth, particularly around the parking that's happening that's under development at the airport. You still have some very aggressive revenue targets there. Do you expect to maintain those numbers, or are you looking at any hits based on the amount of construction that's happening from the parking side of the business?
We are always evaluating, and as we look at what space we'll lose, we're building additional space. So we have some robust planning going on right now for both additional gate capacity for aircraft, but also parking capacity. And not only are we looking at revenue parking for our customer, but we're also looking at parking for our employees to make it affordable so we could attract them to want to come to work at the airport. We just opened up a 1,100 parking spot for just airport, mostly concession employee. Max they will pay per day for parking is $3.
And then lastly, just to piggyback off of Councilmember Amos, in terms of security, we just saw a new state law that allows open carry throughout the state of Georgia. The atrium at the airport is one of the areas that's pre-security screening. Are we seeing any increased, dollars being spent to make sure that those areas are more secure than they have been in the past? And are we expecting any additional threats knowing that, that there is a new open carry law in the state of Georgia?
So when it comes to security, I'm very careful of what I say, but this week, on Tuesday, Jan and myself met with the administrator of the Transportation Security Administration, Admiral Pekaski. We spent a quite significant amount of time with him talking about our gun laws and the program we have in place to minimize impact if a gun is introduced to our checkpoint as it pertains to the atrium area and the rest of the public side. We have a very robust program that our law enforcement agencies, and so agent, not only APD, but we have agencies in the area to protect the area. Accident and discharge is one issue, but malicious or deliberate focus by an individual, we have adequate protective measure in place for immediate response. Now, I'm not talking quick, immediate, because we are geographically spread out and our officers are well equipped to handle any of those type of situation.
Okay. Thank you very much.
I've got a few. So I'm a little bit curious. Inflation is here. A recession might be here soon. Fuel is all over the place. How are these factors affecting your operations? And what's your expectation regarding a recession? What's your forecasting?
Yeah, I think from a financial perspective, certainly they're there. As we built this budget, we're certainly taking those into account both on the personnel side, on the contract side, because we don't want the core operations, this core security, the core technology components of what we do at the airport to be compromised because of inflation. And may have some additional comments from an operational perspective.
So it's very concerning to us in terms of the cost of goods and services, along with the availability of labor force and then the supply chain disruption. I will tell you that yesterday we received a bid for a project, and the bid came in 76% higher than what our internal cost estimate was. 76%. And as I talked to my peers, yesterday I was talking to the director of Seattle, he's saying the same thing. I spoke to my friend over in Philly, and this morning she told me she just resigned from a position. She's saying the same thing in Philly. Charlotte, my friend over in Charlotte is saying the same thing. So the cost of inflation, and this week we get a monthly report on inflation, and where I told our contractor who was briefing us on the inflation that, could you please give me some good news, please, because what you're telling me is so it dampened my day, because we're at 47% in terms of the escalation of goods, construction goods, steel, lumber, cement. So it's very, very concerning right now. The other concern that I have is this $25 billion infrastructure bipartisan bill that was passed. We have yet to see from the FAA, and we're pushing them hard. I met with both our senators and our congressional representative, Ms. Williams, and others, and we're talking about pushing the FAA to provide us a schedule of timeline when they will get that money in our hands, because when I met with them, inflation was at 7%. That $25 $1 billion, $5 billion was for FA Tower and 24 Airport. That $20 billion has eroded $1.4 billion in buying power. And so inflation is going to cause us to buy less for the dollar. So it's very concerning to us right now, especially on the capital side and also on the goods and service side. A can of paint, now to paint the runway, instead of it will take us $5 million, it may take us $7 or $8 million a year to paint the runway because we use so much. Same with light bulbs, and 16,000 light bulbs that we have. The mandate is I cannot have more than 3 consecutive lights out on the runway. So it's going to be a robust, we have a robust program that will cost us significantly more. I don't know what that significant is as yet.
All right, well, that's sobering. Does your proposed staffing increase reflect pandemic recovery in general? Okay.
Not only a pandemic recovery, but we have grown the enterprise. And when I told him I had 779 FTE position, have been static for many, many years. We are going to be bringing a new de-icing facility. We brought on 2 parking lots, nearly 7,000 parking spaces we brought on online. We're adding 5 more gates that we can open at the end of this year. And so we need to right-size the staff when I did the evaluation. And as a result of that, we are asking for an increase in our overall FTE position.
All right. I'm going to make you king for a day. What would you like to do with Dawson and Paulding?
I'm not going to incriminate myself. Michael, I want you to answer that question, please.
I think it just has always driven us nuts about those 2 properties.
Is it a real question or rhetorical?
Answer it in a real sense.
All right, so let me guess. It's being studied.
All right. We've looked at the property over the years, and the Paulding County, as far as the second airport, is probably not going to happen, as well as the Dawson is probably not going to happen because of the amount of construction, whatever you have to do within the mountains to make it feasible. We are looking at other ways to utilize the property. Right now, the Dawson property is probably heavily used as a public recreation area, and we've actually noted that in our upcoming ESGP report that is coming out. And so we'll be probably talking with the individuals up there as to how we can utilize the Dawson property. As far as Paulding County, we will probably engage a consultant and look at other ways in which to maybe monetize the use of that property.
When we look at this, when we did the analysis 10 years ago, the cost of using that property for a second airport, the financial cost is going to be in the red, and no airline will be able to operate.
No, I mean, we all know that's just not realistic. All right, well, I'm going to toss my bouquet. I'm going to do it in this format. As I travel around, my experience usually used to be that some of these major airports just kind of made my teeth itch as I walk through them. There have been some major outstanding upgrades in various airports around the country, and I have to believe they're trying to keep up with y'all and the fantastic work that you've done out there. I love that you have leveraged that space as a way to display our culture, our art, and our history. You've been very aggressive with that, and it's just gorgeous. I do not mind being there early. Anything else? Ms. Moon.
Yes, thank you all so much. Tell me a little bit about your minority participation at all levels at the airport. Someone mentioned Maynard Jackson, and I want to make sure that we ask that question.
Okay, so there are a number of areas that we participate. There's 3 basic areas, right? We have federal standard, and we have city local standard. And so I'm going to talk first about the capital program construction. In the last 6 years, we completed $2.3 billion worth of capital investment construction invoice. Of that, 1.8 billion was eligible for female and minority business participation, and of that amount, we pay $607 million, $100 million a year to female and minority business participation. That's 34%, Councilmember. It's an envy for the rest of the industry, for the rest of this industry in the nation. The FAA cited us and said, use Atlanta template as a way for inclusion in your. Now we have ACDB, Airport Concession Disadvantaged Business. We're meeting or exceeding the goal established in there. And then service contracts, $134 million a year in service contract, and we're also meeting or exceeding those goals.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anything else? All right, Airport, thank you. Colleagues, we started on time and we're ending early. So I want to thank everyone.
Thank you, Councilmember. Have a great day.
I want to thank everyone for their great questions. Now, because we have a blessed fifth Monday week coming up, budget hearings will not resume until June the 7th, 10 a.m. here in historic council chambers. Thank you.
The handout that we gave.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I know, but we'll get lost in all of it. I just wanted to have the bill in first. Good job, Ryan.
Thank you.
Good job, guys. Thanks.
here today at Cook Park in beautiful Vine City, the neighborhood where I was born and raised, where I grew up, just a couple of blocks from my house. And we're starting out today the very first event for the Atlanta Jazz Festival. This is the first event in the Neighborhood Jazz Series. I'm partnering with Councilmember Byron Amos, who also was born and raised here in Vine City. And we are returning the jazz back to the community. Vine City is also the home of the historic Magnolia Ballroom, which many people around the nation know as the Cotton Club of the South. And so many acts, James Brown, Nat King Cole, Cab Calloway, Duke Ellington, everybody in between came within a 8-block radius of this park to bring jazz to our city. And so this is the first major jazz event in Vine City since that time. I mean, since almost 70 years. We got families out here, free food, and we want to thank the Bureau of Cultural Affairs and Camille Love for assisting us and helping to put this on.
We choose Atlanta. Let me tell you why. It's the melodies rising from the soul of our streets, the rhythms of bluegrass mixing and meshing with the trap beats, streaming from the Roxy, from Eddie's Attic in the east to the Terminal West, with the sound Hail United that's coming from the Benz. Our city has a soundtrack completely its own. It's one of the reasons we love to call this place home. It's the art from the heart of our local creators. The Cabochon streets are like a city of painters. Our digital artists are making waves online, selling NFTs, creating a culture that thrives. Our metropolitan shines with colors of its own. It's one of the reasons we love to call this place home. It's our mission to make this city a city for all. Diversity, equity, inclusion, those are non-negotiable. Our civil rights giants revolutionized the nation. And we'll uphold that legacy for every generation. Our city has a heartbeat. No one stands alone. It's one of the reasons we like to call this place home. It's the neighborhoods, the vibrant cultural epicenter where technology meets cosmetology. And the food? There's nothing better. It's Woodstock to Trillard, Krog Street flavors, Covington to Noonan, Marietta to Decatur. It's the Braves with the W for the MLB. The Microsoft Azure Center going multi-county. It's the capital of the world for the FinTech Coalition. Cisco and Dakota with a Midtown mission. Yeah, this is where we work. This is where we play. It's the place where 6 million dreamers have chosen to say, we choose Atlanta. This is our home. This is where we're planted. This is where we'll grow. We choose Atlanta for reasons all our own. But one thing is the same. We all call this place home.
Summer is right around the corner, which means registration is now open for Camp Best Friends, sponsored by Atlanta's Parks and Recreation Department. Join us June 6th through July 22nd as we go around the world. Campers will have a fun, exciting, and educational summer at recreation centers throughout the city. We also have options for campers with special needs and adult senior campers. Atlanta residents and city employees pay just $35 a week for campers ages 5 through 17. Camp is free for our seasoned residents. Financial assistance is available for those who qualify. To register, visit your neighborhood recreation center or visit atlantaga.gov for more information.